Alright, hopefully the audio is working. Looks like it's working. I might need to bump it up a bit, and hopefully I won't get too loud. And since it's almost 3 o'clock, I'm almost definitely guaranteed to have a certain person walk through that door, and then everybody will disregard manners and consideration, politeness, and just be in the living room and make noise and just screw me up and make me look stupid and bad and whatever. Anyways, let's see. It is the 30th of December, and let me just cut to this. Actually, I don't know why this is the 2024 one. I don't know. IMVU has been weird and stingy this year. Some years they're like that. They used to give out all kinds of free things. And, yeah, we're gonna party like it's 2024. Well, so there's that. Anyways, let me just cut back to this. And I don't know why it started off with that, but that's, my animation with various keyframes done by my friend who pled guilty to 2 counts of CSAM, and it was trending all over frickin' Twitter during GoFest in 2024, which is also the year that my friend died, my very significant friend. Anyways, I just thought, is that gonna work? No, here we go. I just thought that I just would mention I did some vlogs. They have similar thumbnails. I now have this option to do A/B testing, which is actually more like A, B, and C testing. But whatever, if you know what that is. And I did make some vlogs, including ones with audio interruptions with people. It's interesting how the view counts on these things are up and down and inconsistent. So that's kind of weird. I don't know if you can, I figure you can see this. I've literally had where I've made stuff that wasn't vlogs, but it was just content or things that I made. And when I would be in like the television studio or film studio, and this was like in the 20-teens, and I would share the link with my other filmmaker, crew, people, personnel, or whatever, give them the video to the thing that I made, which was usually like VFX or something, or animation or whatever it was. I could see them all look at the video on their phones in the TV station or the film set, and then go home, and it would still say, and there were more people there who I visually confirmed watched the video than the actual view counts. So whatever. Yeah. So here's another weird thing. Okay, so I've been into reality shifting. I was curious about it. I started to find out about it in, I think it was 2023 because of, or I just want to credit people. So, okay, the person who runs this channel, his name is Mark. He's actually a really nice guy. And there's a lot of interesting things about him. He's very Gen X that I can very much relate to. But he's been scrutinizing everything in this reality. And I was on like a chat with him recently, like a member chat or whatever, which is not public, so don't even bother looking for it. And so he had recommended to me to get, for various reasons, because there's just so much research. I've probably watched every video he's ever done at least twice. because I just wanted to digest it. It's probably even more than that. There are some video streams that I would watch that would get taken down that I never got to fully finish, because sometimes he would like stream into like 4 a.m. or whatever, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna sleep. Anyways, another person who's very popular in this space, in these topics, is Howdie Mikoski. Howdie Mikoski, who I've had some text or comment interactions with, and this, he just kind of fell off of that in, let me see, where is his, it's probably not on this, browser. He kind of just went off into like, I don't want to like shame people for being like, I don't know if he's libertarian, but it kind of seems like libertarian-ish lately. And where is it? He has this like paid platform. Is it on this? Is it on this one? Yes, I have a bajillion of these. No. I don't even know where it is. I don't have it ready at hand, but like he had his own like platform that's like on locals. Actually, let me see. What if I type in locals? Oh, there it is. So it's all kind of mostly stuck behind a paywall. Sometimes you can kind of watch some of the content on here, which I gotta be honest, in the past, well, so for 2025, I kind of just quit watching. Why is that not working? Okay, it got very like, I don't know, soapbox-ish. So I don't really know what he's up to anymore. He did do various podcasts to promote one of his newer books or whatever. His concepts or whatever, and his ideas and his opinions and his views on these things are actually kind of pretty good. His arguments are pretty good. Like, he has a book called, I think it's Exiting the Cave. Another one I also like, who also had a video recently, is Anthony Peake, which I probably have somewhere in a tab, but I don't feel like rooting around for it. And he's also another author who has very interesting ideas right here. And he just had a new video recently. It's this one. And then there's other people like sort of connected to us. So there's Harold and Agnoia. I think it's Agnoia. Why does it say Agnosia? It's like Agnoia. Isn't it Agnoia? Yeah, it's Agnoia. I don't know why I did Agnosia. He's a interesting personality, and he's very social with a number of the people connected to various stuff. And then there's Heather. And I really like how she's kind of gone into this like philosophical, really putting in the work in the thinking and the how to really approach a topic and how to really digest it and how to like question it, scrutinize it, sort of challenge the axioms, and she's probably in my top favorites at this point right now for content that I watch. And she just started off mostly just hanging out with us on Mark's channel, And so I have like a lot of respect for her. She has a very unique perspective on life because she's, how can I, what's the correct word these days? Handicapped? And it's in a really bad handicap. I would not wish that on anybody. So there's certain things I can relate to her about because I have back pain and it sucks in my lower back. And right now my leg is screwed up. Her main focus lately is on like, especially the Tauros, the concept of Tauros and questioning reality, like reincarnation, soul trap stuff. And she's also been going into things like plasma and ether. And it's funny how many things, even in my own life experience, things that people talk about or things that come up, even in things that are not related to each other, these same kind of concepts will come up and like she'll talk about it, or I don't know what to call this, like synchronicity or whatever. I also have had experiences with, here, let me just, I've also had experiences very recently, actually this year especially, and even last year, even 2023 and 2022, but also when I was younger. I have been doing a lot of meditation this year, and meditation is kind of like it has many definitions, and the actual definition and origin of the meaning of meditation means to ponder, to think. And there are religion versions of it, especially like in Christianity or Judeo-Christian or alchemy or ancient Greece and the ancient Rome and whatever, where it's more of a philosophical thing, and it can be things like mathematics and Rene Descartes' famous written works are meditations, as well as someone like Marcus Aurelius, who was usually the guy attributed to, what is it, Stoicism, which I absolutely detest. I feel like Stoicism is a methodology approach for people who have serious addiction issues or addictive personality problems or certain kinds of mental illnesses, or very bad toxic upbringings, or have abusive tendencies or have a tendency to get way out of control, especially like impulsiveness. And my distaste for especially Marcus Aurelius's version of Stoicism and most Stoicism was the fact that the Protestants in Europe were obsessed with it, and they just assumed that all people were like that because probably they were. I don't feel that most people have addiction issues, and most people don't have, especially in a substance way or a sensory way. And to just conclusion jump that because you have that problem, that everyone else must also, that's a form of projection. I've seen this with a number of things, like in the New Age communities. There are whole groups of people in these echo chambers where they will absolutely believe that all illnesses, all medical problems are some psychological problem, that they caused their problem, and they'll have a list of these things, and then they will jump to this conclusion based on their experience. When I would say, no, I would think that would mean that you're psychosomatic, and the reason why you're experiencing it and you conclude that way is because you were like that, and now you're projecting that onto other people. I find this kind of thing quite frequently an issue in like New Agey groups, is that they project their perspectives and their beliefs onto other people and just presume and conclusion jump that because it's true for them in their screwed up circumstances, that therefore everyone else is like that. Which is almost like solipsism in a way. Only not exactly. Anyway, so, let's see, Heather has so many, like, really interesting things that she talks about or whatever, but, I have come across, actually, let me pull up that browser. Where is it? Which one was it? It's this one. So, which one was it? Where the heck did that video come from? Soul contracts? Oh, that's my friend's video. Okay. Oh, that's why. Why am I not finding it? Okay, here it is. That is not the one. Is this the one? This. Okay, here we go. I'll just pull that right here. I don't feel like editing. And I'll just do this in one take. In one freaking take. I don't know why this cuts differently. So I actually watched this. There was this documentary that I was looking for a while, and it was super popular, like, back in the day. It was like the late 2000s, early 20 teens. This video was very popular. It was like either the end of the Bush era or the beginning of the Obama kind of era, somewhere around there. And I remembered it. I thought it was like PBS or something, which is like Nova, or it could have been BBC. And I'll leave this link in the description or whatever. And it gets into there's so many, like, mathematic things, but this is very easy to digest. This is so, like, Feynman technique that you could be an idiot and still understand this. That sounds so mean. I'm so sorry. But it was like where this concept of fractals, the process of how fractals became, accepted, and everything from like how things work to 3D animation, CGI graphics, which is something I studied. I have a degree in, and it gets into obviously Mandelbrot. Right, so you have the Mandelbrot set, which is, it's that one, right, which it just zoomed out of, whatever, Mandelbrot set. Then there's this is like the snowflake one. I forgot what this one's called. It's this guy. No, it didn't go to the thumbnail. Okay, there's the Mandelbrot set. And this gets into things like computing. There was the other thing that was, I don't think I'm going to dig up the link today, but I'll mention it. And there was this computing thing that's oftentimes referred to as the game of life. And that it's really old. It's like really old mathematicians from several centuries ago. And they used a grid. In my memory, when I first learned about it, these two mathematicians came up with the grid, and based on a certain set of rules, they used saucers, like tea saucers or plates or so, like ceramic plates. But when I talked to ChatGPT or DeepSeek or whatever, they were like, no, that's not, you're remembering wrong. It was this other thing. So whatever. There you go, there's a Mandelbrot. Yeah, that's a Mandelbrot set, right? And there's so many things in this. This is kind of one of these things where the concept of mathematics, I feel like different people have different understandings of it without realizing it. Like, I think because, especially in the United States, we're not taught arithmetic anymore. We're taught mathematics or new math. And they've removed so much stuff out of it and it's supposed to just be like utilitarian or functional, and it's so boring. And I can't really think in like calculations, right? I struggle to do math in my head unless I've memorized it. Whereas people who are doing like crafts things on a daily basis are actually using math. They're just not thinking about it in written numbers or calculations. And even so, literacy and letters and numbers or numerals and characters are an abstract representation of an idea, just like language words that are spoken are an abstract representation of an idea, like the word love. How do you express love? What is love? You know what love is, and we have this word, but how do you explain what it is? So we as human beings use words, both spoken and written, as well as other kinds of expressions and gestures that convey love, which we otherwise wouldn't be able to communicate about without that, because it's kind of the nature of this reality. And so this was something I also experienced. I remember when I worked at the bank in 2012 in Philly, or the various banks. There were people who, like, on the bus, because I don't know, in the early 20 teens, mid 20 teens, and even late 2000s, knitting was like suddenly popular, and men were into it, right? And knitting is like another kind of meditative practice. There's many kind of artisan type things that are repetitive that can also be very like meditative, whether it's weaving, knitting, crocheting, carpentry, sharpening tools. And I've even seen, I wish I could find documentaries, I can't. Like, I've seen like Zen practices that incorporated some kind of breathing technique to some kind of repetitive something. And this gets into, what is it called? Kyudo or something? It's a kind of archery Zen. It's fantastic, amazing stuff. And I personally, when it came to doing art, because I was more specialized in traditional animation as a traditional animator, even though I have a degree in computer animation, because it's all connected. In order to become a really good, refined artist, you have to do this thing called practice, and you do something over and over again, and it sort of increases your muscle memory. And then there comes a point where you don't even need to think about what you're doing, it just happens. Then there's things like inspiration, which is like another experience, which I could talk about at length. And people that are not artists and not creatives, and I feel like athletes also can experience this as well, which is why, like, when I was younger, like, the Olympics were were a major subject of interest to me. This kind of striving to go beyond what you used to be, that, or things like NASA, which now is a point of scrutiny for me. Because NASA's been busted lying, and I say that as someone who has 2 medals from NASA. Anyway, on the buses and the commutes, the buses as well as the trains, but especially on the busing commutes in Center City, Philadelphia, in 2012 when I lived there, there would be these various like women on the buses, depending on which branch of the bank I was at, because sometimes when it was warm, when it was good weather, I would just walk because I could, which I can't do right now. Damn it. They would be doing all this intricate like mathematical stuff in the weavings or the knitting and stuff, and this is all like complex geometry, mathematics, but they weren't thinking from a calculation point of view. They were just kind of feeling it and going with it, rather than like this cognitive, like formulaic approach to things, right? And when you get into things like fractals and stuff, you can see how it's kind of like right versus left brain kind of thing. How people that are more creative have a tendency to just not go the mathematical or the like the this is this and that is that, and this obsession with like perfect geometry, and instead they will eyeball it or feel their way through it, which is what I usually tend to do as an artist. And in this video, which I'll definitely leave the link for, which this video, this documentary is so good. Every time I've shown this to somebody, they will always show, like, send it to like a friend or a relative or whatever. I'm like, oh my gosh, you need to see this. And they were talking about how all of her work was highly mathematical, highly intricate, complex stuff, like super complex geometry. And she's like, it is, I suck at math, right? And this is a common experience that I also have. And I say that as someone who is a traditional animator, and I also done 3D and CGI and VFX. And another thing that used to just freaking baffle me was, so I mostly went to school, public school in New Jersey growing up, but I did go to school in Pennsylvania, as well as when I was in high school, I also took college classes because I'm extra. And I would go to Philadelphia. I also had the option, if I wanted, when I was like in 5th grade, I could have been in the orchestra because I played violin. I had a confidence issue, a self-esteem issue, and I thought I sucked. I don't know why. To this day, I still kind of think like I probably just sucked, right? But then I'll think about it and I'll be like, yeah, but they kept constantly inviting me to go play at in the orchestra with the Philadelphia Orchestra on the weekends, especially like Sunday mornings and even Saturday mornings. And since I don't like mornings and I'm not a morning person and I'm a night owl, the idea of getting up at like 4 a.m. to go to Philly to play the violin was like evil. I was like, why didn't you ever do it at like 2 p.m. in the afternoon? That's just my thoughts on it. And so I never did. And I felt like I didn't practice enough because I didn't have one of those stands to put the folder on, and I tried all kinds of things like you can't really read the music on the bed flat. I would try to put it on the window, but I wasn't really tall enough to totally see all of the sheet music. I sucked at reading sheet music, and I would color code everything because I have some kind of weird dyslexia. And yeah, they put me in the advanced class. To this day, I still think about it, like, wasn't my brother better at it, though? Like, I don't know, but my brother was very talented with music stuff, and he used to do something called, like, playing by ear, where there'd be a popular melody, whether it was a jingle in a commercial or a Disney song or whatever, and then he'd figure out how to play it on any instrument. And then when I saw him doing that, I was like, oh, I think I can do that too. And then I would also do that. And I still, to this day, I can still do that. I can also improv. In fact, when I was super little, when I was very little, I used to make up my own songs. My daughter did that. I still kind of do that. Like when I have a pet or a cat or someone, or if I'm with my mom, and she usually has at least one dog at any given time, or more. And I would always just make up little weird musical little things I would say. I also used to do this with certain friends of mine. So, like, my friend Pebbles, I would randomly, like, make up some kind of little tune or something that I would just kind of, I don't know, sing out loud when I was around them because I just loved that person. Especially Pebbles. I probably did it to other people too. I know I did it with my daughter. It's a thing. I don't know. There used to be videotape footage that my dad recorded on the VHS, with our old camcorder or whatever. And when I was like 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, and I would just like skip around the house and make up my own like music with My Little Ponies and whatever. And so music, I really like music. And there were many points in time where I was more obsessed with music and DJs and house music and techno than, or even synth pop, than doing my art. right? Even though, like, art was my thing. But I also really like science and philosophy and ethics a lot. Anyway, yeah, in this video, they point this kind of thing out, that certain people's brains are actually understanding math. They just don't process it through, like, calculations, like how you'd usually think of with math, because it's like math, practical use of math is boring and dry, and it's intentionally done that way. There was another thing I wanted to say. But yeah, that was I remember when I was on the bus in Philadelphia, I remember there was like this guy who was like some guy at a university, and he was some mathematics guy, and he was like freaking out in a way, like enthusiastically, that these ladies on the bus were doing these knitting things and complex geometry, and he was like, how are you doing that? And he's like, you didn't even like make a graph, or you didn't plan it. And they're like, no, I'm just kind of going off of like what's in my mind and how it feels, and if it looks wrong, I'll just undo it and start over until I get it right. And this like baffled this guy. Then there's things like geometry. So I went to school, like I said, I went to public school in New Jersey mostly, and there's Mandelbrot right there. Is it going to show him, or is it going to show a different frame? Whatever. So I went to public school in New Jersey. It's a different guy, totally different guy. Anyway, and while I was there, a normal thing that we learned when I was very little was geometry. We had to use protractors, which actually, let me bring that up. Let's go to protractor. Hopefully it'll come up, and there you go, protractors. We used all kinds of protractors, and this was when I was in 3rd grade, so that was like at the end of the Reagan era and the Dukakis-Bush election, which then went into Bush 1. And I've probably used every single one of these kinds of protractors. And it was a thing in the 3rd grade and 4th grade that there were ones in different I've used this kind, I've used this kind, and they were in different colors. They had them in like, fluorescent colors were like the thing at the time, so I had them in like fluorescent colors and keychains. You could hook it onto the back of your backpack, and everybody had all kinds of fancy protractors. And in the class, basically we would just, like, the work, honestly, I felt like it was so easy. It would be like, okay, what is the measurement degree of these angles? Then you'd have like page after page of all these angles, either as dittos, which are like Xerox copies of like what were called worksheets, or it could be just in a textbook, and you just go this page and then you measure it, and go to that page and measure it. And we spent a lot of time on this, so I had a very fundamental understanding of things like symmetry. And then there was even things like, so there's bilateral symmetry, and then there's radial symmetry. And these were normal terms that we used all the time. And so that was my basic upbringing. Like, here we go. This is like how to use a protractor. What's a right angle? What's a square? And when I was in high school, I had to study advertising, art, and design, which is today probably known as like graphic art or whatever. And we had to we worked on a drafting table, and we had to use like a T-square and triangles, as well as French curves. And so for me, the basics of geometry, as well as practical uses of geometry, as well as I also was big time into science. I studied environmental science, which is like several scientific disciplines, oftentimes connected to ecology, but it's not just ecology. And all these things connect. It's the circle of life. Anyway, and when I was here in Massachusetts, there was this whole weird kerfuffle thing with Girl Scouts, and it did not go exceptionally well, because it seems to always go that way. Although everyone thinks certain persons smear me as I hate men, I can tell you for a fact I have quite a number of issues with chicks. If anything, I have a tendency more often to hang out with men than women until it gets creepy. That's another thing. But there are certain things that I do have a tendency to notice, these problems I have with certain personalities who are men, that it's so frustrating and annoying, and they don't think they're wrong for doing it, and it's like really bad. But I'm not going to get into that. Anyway, but there are messed up things that women do as well. Toxic femininity is definitely a thing, and yeah, that's a thing. But when I was in Girl Scouts, they had no concept of symmetry at all. And I remember there was this one troop that splintered into these other troops, and this chick who is so Dunning-Kruger, because this one chick was so, like, not that smart, but she was hell-bent on, like, proving she was smart. And she would just do stuff that made no sense, no common sense. She was also unable to understand what was wrong with it and why. And I remember she wanted Girl Scouts to not just be arts and crafts all the time and girly stuff, and she wanted like a mix of stuff, like science and, you know, how Boy Scouts are. And so she had this one day, she was like overly ambitious. Like, it was just like, these things don't make sense. She started like inviting like extremely special, like certain kinds of kids who were very super duper difficult to work with, like special needs, but she was not qualified to work with them. Nobody else was qualified to work with them, and then somehow just was like, well, Candace, you're the smart one, figure it out. I'm like, that's not how that works. I'm not a professional in that field. I don't know how to work with someone with special needs, and some of these people were really dangerous and violent, and I mean, it was bad. So we're doing this like demo for how to build a kite, because it was her idea. So because she was so hell-bent on this kite idea, let's teach kids how to make kites, as she bought all the materials and stuff, she had no idea what she was doing, never even tested it before she even taught it, because she didn't know how to do it. And then she's like, oh, well, Candace, like, you're the smart one, so you could figure it out. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So then I'm talking about, like, symmetry, because for kites, it's bilateral symmetry. And they're doing stuff, and I'm like, why are you doing that? That's not symmetrical. And they're like, what? And I'm like, symmetry? And they have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm like, didn't you ever learn, like geometry, right? Because I learned geometry in the 3rd grade. Okay? That's when I first learned it. So to me, that's, like, super basic, right? And they're like, no, I didn't learn it until the 10th grade, and I failed it. And I'm like, how do you fail? How do you fail something like symmetry? Or I'm like, haven't you ever used a protractor? And they're like, well, not really, or like maybe once in class. And I'm like, what? And these people, some of these people were registered nurses, and I'm like, what the hell is this? So I couldn't even explain anything to them, because they didn't even understand the basics of things like symmetry. And the fundamentals of like I'm like, do you know how to make a paper airplane? And they're like, no. And I'm just like, what the heck? So then, because we had a store in the mall, I was talking to people in the mall about this, And I was expecting them to be as shocked as I was. And they were like, yeah, well, I don't really know either, and I never really learned it. And I'm like, when did they teach you geometry in Massachusetts? And they're like, oh, I don't know, maybe like in the high school before you graduate or something. And I was just so shocked by this, because I mean, I went to school in New Jersey mostly, as well as in Pennsylvania. And these were all basic fundamentals of education for us. We also learned music education, which is actually also a type of math. And I went beyond just the basics of music education, because I actually played like violin. No frets with that. And I played other instruments too. And I remember trying to talk to my brothers about this, and they didn't have any sympathy for me at all. None. Zero. They're like, oh, well. They're like, yeah, well, I know I remember, like, I learned it, but I think it was in middle school. And I'm like, no, I learned it in 3rd grade. I definitely learned it in 3rd grade, because I remember it. I remember it in 3rd grade, I remember it in 4th grade, I remember it in 5th grade, and then it rehashed again in middle school, so it was like easy peasy for me. It was like, oh, I love doing geometry class, because like I don't have to really think. It's just eyeball it, or this is like, use a protractor. A protractor is a very useful tool if you understand what that's for and how to apply it. For example, like a T-square, if you've ever done drafting. If you've used Photoshop, if you've done photography, if you've done traditional animation, there's so many things you can apply it to, that it just baffles me that these are basic concepts. And yet Plato, when he started his like academy, he had like words over the top of his door that said, if you don't understand geometry, you can't enter here, which to me is also very weird and telling, as though this was some kind of advanced knowledge, which to me is just common. Like what was it, there was like that triangle, the isosceles triangle. Here, let me is that what it was? This is why I probably spelled it wrong. Alright, this is, so like isosceles triangle. And did I spell that wrong? I probably did. In geometry, an isosceles triangle is a triangle that has 2 sides of equal length and 2 angles of equal measure. Sometimes it is specified as having exactly 2 sides of equal length, and sometimes having at least 2 sides of equal length. The latter version, thus including the equilateral triangle as a special case. Examples of isosceles triangles include isosceles right triangle and the golden triangle, the faces of bipyramids and certain Catalan solids. Right, and then there's that saying, and I know they say it in the, have you ever watched The Wizard of Oz, the MGM one from, I think it was the 30s with Judy Garland? At the end of the movie, the Scarecrow says one of the formula things. I think it was from Pythagorean. Was it Pythagorean theorem? Might have been that. Let me see. I can't spell for crap. It states that in a right triangle, the square of the length of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of the lengths of the other 2 sides. So the Scarecrow, actually I wonder if I can find it. I wonder if it's in there. So at the time when that film was made, there was no like Einstein yet. So their references to a smart person was Abraham Lincoln and that quote. And since the Scarecrow had no brain, I wonder if that's even. I wonder if that's even a thing. Oh, it's probably an error. Okay, well apparently it's an error. Here we go. Is it going to apply Least triangle? Okay, that's probably why it's wrong. Anyway, here we go. What do they say? Near the end of The Wizard of Oz, when the wizard gives the Scarecrow the THD Doctor of Theology diploma, the Scarecrow proudly shows off his gift of a brain by reciting seemingly complex mathematical theorem believed to be known as the Pythagorean theorem. However, the Scarecrow seemingly unknowingly recites the incorrect version of the Pythagorean theorem with these words: the sum of the square roots of any two sides of an isosceles triangle is equal to the square root of the remaining side. And then it says, students familiar with geometry will immediately recognize that the Pythagorean theorem sums the squares, not square roots, of the two smallest sides called legs, i.e. not any two sides, and the sum equals the square, i.e. not square root of the longest side. Don't worry, I'm not really an expert in square roots myself. Called the hypotenuse, not the remaining side. Always of the right triangle, which has right angle opposite of the hypotenuse, i.e. the isosceles triangle, which has two equal sides, which will not have a right angle unless it's an isosceles triangle. Interesting to note that Danny Kaye got the Pythagorean theorem right, even while singing and dancing with children to boot, in his rendition of the square of the hypotenuse in the movie entitled Merry Andrew 1958, when he sang and danced with his students to these lyrics: the square root of the hypotenuse of the right triangle is equal to the sum of the squares of the adjacent sides. And then it's referencing it here. If that was sounded like blah 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 to you, it's because they don't really teach us arithmetic anymore. They teach us mathematics, and I used to absolutely hate doing it when I was a kid. I hated it. My mind would just die, and I would just tune out, and I don't know, daydream or something, because it was so boring. But if I had known the origins of math, like Pythagoras, and how these things were supposed to be like spiritual or of the cosmos or very heralded or very exonerated, or not exonerated, exalted or whatever, I probably would have taken more of an interest in math, which might also be probably why a lot of females in the United States don't like math. Whereas when I lived in China, they are taught things very differently, and girls are very good at math in many, well, it depends on the generation. I've experienced this many times myself, selling things, and we had a store, we had many different stores, and the women who would buy stuff from us could already instantly calculate what the price would be before I even rang it up. So if I rung it up wrong, they could point out how wrong I was. Not only that, but when I would go shopping in either Chinatown, Boston, or Chinatown, Philadelphia, they didn't have registers, and when I would purchase stuff like carrots and fresh fruit, they could just calculate it in my head, and if I didn't understand the price, they could completely explain it to me why it was that price, even though they were not using a register. And that concept of the isosceles triangle and the Pythagorean theorem was almost entirely lost forever. I think it was some Arabs who archived it, and that's why we have it, because many of the archives and libraries where these documents were held were considered evil and bad magic, evil sorcery or the devil, and including something like an astrolabe, if you know what an astrolabe is. Let me see if what will come up. Astrolabe, which is absolutely one of these things that I'm so fascinated, because these are almost entirely done by hand. And there's many variations of astrolabes, which are just so fascinating to me. This is a super fascinating bit of technology. There's so many kinds. If you were to make an astrolabe, you could probably spend years perfecting it to do what you wanted it to do. And they all do various different things, whether it's calculating time, measuring calendars, tracking stars, tracking planets. I've seen them do all kinds of things. Everything from like surveying to, it's fascinating stuff. Usually when they come up, when people mention them, they mention more of the Islamic variety.
An astrolabe
and stop. And another bit of technology that people still use today is something like a compass. It's another very interesting bit of technology. And I remember back when GPS was something you put on your resume, that for a very long time I still had GPS in my resume. Because it was a very valuable skill. Now, like, GPS is so commonly in your smartphones that it's just whatever to people. But that whole thing about the triangle and the Pythagorean theorem was so secretive and it was like elitist. And it was almost entirely lost forever. And yet I was taught these things as a child. Everyone was, including like in 3rd grade, 4th grade. That to me, the fact that somebody didn't understand what symmetry was and couldn't look at trying to make a kite and not understand that it wasn't symmetrical, also didn't have a concept of how to make a paper plane, was to me like being among absolutely illiterate people. But even when I talked to people that I grew up with in New Jersey, they had this weird like apathy, like, oh well, that sucks. But then they would also kind of act like, well, they didn't learn it in childhood. And I'm like, yeah, you did, because I was in class with you. And I remember it vividly because I hated math and I didn't hate geometry because I didn't suck at it. Probably also because geometry is very visual. Another thing I did sort of okay with at times was graphing, which so many things ended up switching over to calculators, because calculators became more and more advanced very quickly, even since the 80s, that by the time we were going to graduate and then you had to go to college, you would need to know how to use the calculators. And so if they didn't teach us how to use the calculators, because it was not straightforward, like a graphing calculator, which are actually pretty cool. Many graphing calculators have video games in them. But we had to learn how to use different kinds of calculators so that if we went to college, we could use the calculators in college. And that happened very quickly. So we went from doing things manually to being told not to use calculators to then being told to use calculators. And then the calculators became like you needed an education to understand how to use the calculator. So that is kind of weird. Anyway, there's so many things I could say about those Girl Scout chicks who I am not friends with anymore, I do not associate with anymore, and I don't want to associate with them. All this is the toxic femininity thing, this backstabbing crap. There is a toxic femininity thing. And then they would approach Girl Scouts seemingly wanting to do like positivity things, only to repurpose it for their own vainglorious show-offingness. And then people who I had stuck up for and helped out were then trashing me because I was intelligent. Because I spoke different languages, I also helped them from other bullies who we broke ties with. And then the main person who had like a troop was still doing Girl Scouts after they screwed up everything. Then I got fed up with dealing with them. I worked in the bank. And these certain people, like, it's like this weird gossip thing I'm so fed up with. I'm just so fed up with it. And it's like, I remember I was at a pirate festival in 2012 in October in cosplay, and I was drunk because it's a pirate festival. It was one of those events of that festival in Marcus Hook, Pennsylvania, near the border of Delaware. And the bartenders were so cool. The people who owned that place were so nice. This bartender lady was so nice to me. She kept giving me brownie shots, and she would just give me another one, and other people would just, because people were just so like happy. It was a pirate festival, right? And I was dressed up. I did a lot of cosplay. Actually, let me show my my cosplay, some of my cosplay stuff. I had a whole character thing. I even had a, oh boy, did they delete? Oh no, did they? Let's see. They did not delete everything, did they? No, they didn't. Where is it? There we go. I had a blog also. Actually, I have a few blogs. This was the event, but this was the main event. I was at like one of the events at nighttime at a bar, and this chick is calling me, bitching my head off, and this was like a few weeks later at here in Massachusetts, or was it, or the following year? I don't know. Anyways, this chick called me, and she's venting and going off and whatever. And before she even like started talking, I was like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm really drunk right now, and I'm at a big festival, and I'm in a cosplay character, and I'm breaking character being on the phone with you right now. And she still went on and on like this. There are definitely some people who do the poor me, look at me, attention, this pity party, like join me in my, commiserate with me in my pain and suffering, and enjoy it with me, or whatever, in a weird sick way, which I don't necessarily think is always a bad thing. Like if you're coping with pain and suffering, or if you're literally terminally ill, there's something to be said about like listening to blues music or emo music or whatever to deal with your horrible feelings and situation. That's very cathartic. And there's whole like message board groups. I don't know if they still exist anymore though, but I remember many of them, of people who were terminally ill, and they were tired of being like fed this forced positivity, which just was very harmful to them psychologically and emotionally. And they wanted to make peace with the dying process because their life was absolutely miserable. And they had tried the forced positivity route, and now they couldn't handle it, and it was like just toxic. And so when they joined these groups where they could talk about their pain and their suffering, express the pent up whatever, then not only did it help them, it eased their passing. Whereas other people who were like on this forced positivity thing had all kinds of extreme anxiety, and they would end up their condition got worse and worse while trying to be just, you gotta only be positive kind of thing. So I do feel like there is some aspect to, coping with pain, suffering, and misery that's not necessarily toxic. Having said that, there are so many people who definitely are that type that seem to enjoy the sound of their voice, bitching and moaning and whatever, and being extremely dramatic about it. But then when someone else has like a real pain and suffering, they're an asshole to them. Not sympathetic at all, which I really don't like. Anyway, I remember being at that bar, at a pub or whatever it was, just being served brownie shot after brownie shot after brownie shot, and this chick was on the phone with me, and she's yelling, and then she's scolding me, And I hadn't been in that Girl Scout troop with my daughter since maybe March or April, and it was already October, like late October, and or mid-October, something like that. It was October, and I had just lost my job over there, and she's scolding me again, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm really drunk right now, and I haven't been in your Girl Scout troop at all for like quite a while. So I don't know what you want me to do. And I just had to reaffirm that. It was just kind of ironic because like I wasn't even sober. And I'm just trying to stay calm so I don't freaking lose my crap. Meanwhile, there's a huge party going on all over this pub, and there's all these sea shanty guys, a band. There was like a band in the place, and they're just, it wasn't like a planned concert. They just suddenly started to like decide, oh, this whole pub is our concert now. And everybody's wanting to take photos with me and dance with me and give me another brownie shot. And I'm also not wanting to get sick. And I'm in like heels, the kind of heels that are hard to walk in. And there's all these especially horny men and also horny women everywhere. And when I'm in character, my character is supposed to be a pompous megalomaniac. And partially to keep off perverts. And I've been drinking, and now I'm on the phone with this chick who's wanting the gossip thing to start and wanting me to participate in it or whatever. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't want to. At some point, I just hung up the phone. I was like, I'm gonna go. I'm really drunk right now. I can't handle this. And she's so mad at me as though I did something bad. I just don't want to be sucked into this crap, you know? But anyway, I do recommend this film. There were some other ones. I actually dug up some other interesting things. Like, I'll probably put this one in there too. This one is it's a documentary from 1994, and you can see it's standard definition, analog format for television. Fractals, The Colors of Infinity, with Arthur C. Clarke. I thought that was pretty interesting. Arthur C. Clarke is kind of there's Mandelbrot. He's kind of a weirdly interesting but also odd guy. I used to watch this show that he had called Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World, where he would take on various topics, seemingly to debunk them, except instead, not every episode he would debunk. He would just point to some phenomena or end his theory on it or whatever, or hypothesis. Let's see, Arthur C. Clarke. Here we go, Mysterious World. Here we go. Here's a whole bunch of those. I watched lots of these. I didn't watch every single one. How many are there in this? It doesn't say. There's a lot in there though. It used to tell you like how many videos were in it. Oh no, here we go. 13 videos in there. So that was one that I used to watch a lot. Another one was really old. It was called In Search of, with Leonard Nimoy. And it would take on these paranormal kind of topics. And it had that weird 70s synthesizer sound in the opening music. I watched so many of these episodes repeatedly, like over and over. Oh my god. Is this the one that has the fake death of Amelia Earhart? Oh, I need to see that. I gotta watch that, see if that's the one. I remember, oh gosh, like 10, 15, 20 years ago, I found footage or some television documentary or something. It might have been In Search Of, about what happened to Amelia Earhart because she was like CIA and faked her death. And they found her alive, and she was pissed. And her denials were really bad. They sucked. Yeah, I should probably look into that. That sounds like something interesting. I have still not watched the new episodes of Stranger Things. There's like 3 more episodes that came out like right before Christmas, and I have not actually looked into them. But there were some other things I thought about doing. Nope, not that. And oh yeah, Mandelbulb. Since I'm on the topic of Mandelbrot, there's just so many things I could talk about. My at the beginning of the day, especially in the morning and when I wake up, my brain is just stupid for a few hours until it like clicks in. And there is a software called Mandelbulb, which I think I have. Do I have it? Or did I take it? Did I remove it? Mandelbulb. Oh, I probably took it off. Do I have Chaotica still on here? I might have taken that off too. There was stuff I had on here that I took off because of my hard drives kept filling up, and I took stuff off my computer. So I'm gonna turn that off, and I don't know why the aspect ratio is stretched, but this software is fascinating. It used to be open source and totally free, but things have changed over the years. And then it's a really interesting software. You don't necessarily need like a good, expensive video card, although this is like more basic stuff. Some of these things are like quite fascinating. How old is this video? 2 years ago? The software's been around like a very long time. Okay, this is like a demo, I guess. Some lecture. These things can be quite interesting. These are just more of like the basic stuff. You used to see like some of these things that were just absolutely baffling visually, and yeah, this is more on like the basic end of stuff. Where's all the good ones? Oh, this one? Mandelbulb. Here we go. Yeah. Morphe's World. Yeah, so some of this stuff is just so interesting, and I remember like when I looked into this was like in the 20 teens, I was just like, wow, this is really interesting. And it gets into fractals, because I already brought up fractals. And they do have, like, so the website now, oh, I spelled it wrong. Let's see what comes up in the images. Yeah, so here's like the world, and these things are fascinating. And then there's their website. They have a free version. It used to be like open source, but now there's like more kinds of paid options, and licensing and so on. So if you wanted to use the footage, you need to have a license, like buy a license for it. There used to be, I think there's still forums and stuff. Categories, sponsors, downloads, featured posts. Okay, let's see what's going on with this. Is that gonna work? That didn't do anything. Anyway, this stuff is quite fascinating visually, and that's a very disappointing tiny photo. Is that even gonna... Okay, there we go. Apparently it's been used in feature films, so VFX and stuff. So I figure most people are probably not familiar with how to use Maya. Maya is not my favorite 3D software. I'd rather use Cinema 4D, Autodesk, 3D Studio Max, which I also don't necessarily love, but I'm more oriented to easier to use, much easier. And oh, that's an interesting one. And then Blender is also good. Blender's totally free. Blender's actually pretty good. Because I use After Effects a lot, I use Cinema 4D. Cinema 4D is awesome. I'm not really a Maya person. And then there's Chaotica. Which, is that gonna work? Here we go, let's go Fractals. Oh, I think that's the software there. This is actually like so easy to use. I don't think they have a video plugin though, yet. It's usually like still frames, unless they fixed that up or whatever. And it's so easy to use this. It's so easy to use this. It's like, was very fun to use actually. Let me go to their website. I think it used to be, I think it used to be free or open source, but now it's like maybe mixed, like you have to buy a license to use the footage or whatever. So yeah, see. And gallery, video. Oh, sorry, this video does not exist. Well, that's bad. It's so easy to use, so easy. I think it was based on another kind of a software thing, which I also had, which is definitely like open source or shareware or something, or freeware. And then, oh, let's see, this is general. Let's see, this is kind of very interesting stuff. It's so easy. I actually probably still have, let me see, maybe on this drive. Let me pull that up. Lid. That's not it. That's not it. I don't think it would be in my 2023 stuff. Or maybe it's on the other drive. Let's see what's in here. Here we go. It's right there. Oh, that's only one thing though. So there's this one. And then where the heck did I put it? Maybe it's in the 2020. Oh, here's Mandelbulb stuff. Okay, so here's some of the Mandelbulb experiments I played. Oh! I apparently made an animated GIF. These are just test things that I did. I didn't put as much time into Mandelbulb. Oh, here we go. I found these. So these are vertical. And then here's another one. And then okay, oh, this should be interesting. Yeah, they're all vertical. I don't know what, I must have formatted it that way for a reason. I should probably pull these into Premiere and do an animation out of it. But I basically programmed these to animate like that. I think I was doing it for like a VFX project that my computer kept crashing or got hacked or whatever, which is why it never got done, which is a common problem I have. Is that the last one? That's probably it. So that's a lot of frames. And
You already eat?
no, I didn't eat yet.
Have a deer meat or fried chicken?
Fried chicken. Yeah.
You're hungry or want it later?
Yeah, I can have it. Yeah, have it. Yeah.
You're not really hungry.
I'm kind of hungry. Yeah, it's 4 o'clock. Here we go. So this one, is this gonna work? Probably not. Let me find the other player. I don't know why, but this format doesn't like to play on GOM player. By the way, if you can't get videos to work, you need a GOM player, but it can put malware in there sometimes. Is that gonna work or what? Here we go. This is Amberlight. I would not recommend using a pirated version of Amberlight ever. Because it's like malware. I do have actual, it's cheap, it's an Amberlight 2, and It's really actually very fun to play with. So this one has 3. Sometimes it has 4. Oh yeah, it does have 4. And you can play with all this kind of stuff, right? There's various tutorials, like you can make kind of like UFO looking or flying saucer looking things if you want. If I think it's like you take out one of these, and then you only have 3 or something. You can change the color. I've recommended this to so many people that have big ambitions for whatever, podcasting or whatever, and it's a very cheap software. It's on... It's really cheap, and it's like some indie software is pretty good, actually. So I have this one too. I have InSpirit, also cheap. This one kind of gets up there in price. This one can sometimes go up in price, but for like Black Friday and Cyber Monday, it's really good. So you can get like a free version and download any of these and try them out. And actually, let me pull that up, because I used to use them in like when I was streaming on Twitch back in the day. So there's InSpirit or InSpirit. Let me close this. Please tell me it saved. Okay, it saved my stuff. So it's honestly like really fun to play with. This is kind of like what I would practice with my Wacom with, and then basically I can just take my Wacom or Wacom pen and, you know, do stuff like this. There's many different ways you can do this, and you can also like zoom out, or at least I used to be able to. I don't know what's going on. Maybe this is a different format. You can also change the background color. You can do whatever you want. So there's that. And then I have Flame Painter, which is really fun to play with, which has like particle brushes. I like it, honestly, in many ways better than effects you can do in Photoshop, although the ability to control it in certain ways is difficult. It's whatever. Alright, let's just so there's that. Let's go to the fire stuff. And this is all mathematics, people. This is all like applied math. And you don't need to understand the calculations to get it to work. This stuff is pretty fun. Let's see, what else do we have? And then, okay, let's see, let's go here. I usually don't like vectors, except this is like really fun. I'm more of a pixel person. but this is freaking really fun. You can also change the size of the brushes. So what I like about it is that it applies like certain kinds of physics to things. You probably wouldn't understand what I'm talking about if you didn't study 3D, even though this is 2D, but it does. It applies like physics. It's particle dynamics. It's one of those things like I just really like. This is like my kind of weird, nerdy, geeky thing that you can apply to art. And what else do we have? Fuzzy. Here we go. This is so interesting to mess around with. Everything. Okay, maybe. Here we go. And then it comes to, well, what the heck? So, he's like switched the brush in midstream. I don't know if some of this is AI or not, because it's not the like machine learning or something. I don't know if it's AI. There's like, I would say it's probably like algorithms. But I'm doing it. It's just computing whatever it's prompted to do, or programmed to do, or whatever. You can do all kinds of interesting effects with these things. And let's see, what's this one? Oh, here we go. And you can download the free versions of the stuff. By the way, I'm not sponsored. I bought these things like years ago. Here we go. I bought these things years ago. Actually, I think I bought these either before or during lockdown. Maybe before. Was it before? It might have been before lockdown. And then, let's see, there's some, so then there's like Rebel, there's Krita. Close that. So I actually have two things running. I also have Autodesk, Sketchbook. There it is, right there. Anyway, so this is a software that's free and actually good. And the reason I know about it is because of David. He was famous for testing out software and critiquing it. This one is Autodesk Sketchbook, which is actually pretty good. It's free. They supposedly discontinued it, but you can still get it everywhere. It's totally free, and it's made by the same company that did 3D Studio Max. And this one is... Oh, I need to download some stuff. How about not now? What's going on? Download? Is there some up? Uh-oh. Okay, well that's lovely. And this I feel like this has a tendency to use like, okay, so that's my, all right, let's do it like this. There we go. That's my, I've programmed it or set it up to do name stamps of my logo. And so it looks like it's a metallic, this is Rebel 7. This software does so many interesting things. You can look that up. Rebel, is it 8 now? I don't even know how many versions. They're just on it. Where is it? Rebel 8, which is like mind-blowingly interesting and good lately. This is the one that'll get pricier. It's a fascinating approach to what's usually pixel-based. They call it nanopixels, which I think is more of a vectorized concept applied to what pixels usually do, which kind of reminds me of like fractals and how things actually work. If you've never studied 3D software, I recommend learning some basics of 3D software, because even if you're just approaching it from like Euclidean geometry or classical geometry or fractals, all of a sudden these things start making, when you're conceptualizing aspects of time, space, continuum, reality, things make more sense, especially when you think about things like atmospheric density, lensing, optics, physics, particles, systems. And this is also because I have a lot of interactions with my friend David, who passed away, and a lot of times the things he does remind me, well, he was a programmer. He wasn't just a programmer, he was a genius, literally. He was a polymath and also a very talented musician and creative person and really super clever. And the things that he would do, actually, can I bring up a software? What should I? So I don't think I have 3D Studio Max. No, I don't have it. That's because I had installed it, but I've been hacked so many times, it's crazy. Do I have Cinema 4D? I do, apparently. I have it on here. Okay, let's go with Cinema 4D. Please don't crash. I also have Clip Studio Paint, which is very affordable. There it is right here. It's super good, especially if you're into like clip art or making it and sharing it and giving it away or selling it. Please don't crash. Please don't crash. Knock wood. Fingers crossed. I'm gonna run my... There. Go away. There's things that... I kind of struggle to explain these things without using like 3D programming terms. So like if you're making some kind of like particle dynamic programming, especially if you're using like a shape and you're applying like maybe noise to it, if that makes sense. Alright, got a thing that popped up here. So they definitely... Wow, why is it yellow? Why is it yellow? That is weird. Why is it like different colors? What? I don't remember it ever doing this. Why is it doing that? It's gonna give people migraines. Oh my god. What the heck is this? What the heck is this? Oh my god. This is so horrible. Anyway, let me close that. I'm gonna close that. That is bizarre. I'm going to go to Blender because it's not, I don't know what the hell is going on with Cinema 4D with that. I've never seen it do that. But I haven't used Cinema 4D in probably like 2.5 years. So, is this going to work? Who the heck even knows? I'll just cut to, oh, no, something loaded. Something loaded. Yes, I always clean my registry because my computer will not work unless I do so. Let's see. Okay, so when it comes to certain kinds of particle dynamics, I don't remember exactly which software does what, when, and why, and how, and I'm kind of a doofus at this. I'm not a lover of 3D animation for most things, and I'd rather do things by hand. However, there are definitely things that I love to use 3D software for to incorporate into traditional animation as well as VFX, and those things are certain kinds of lights, lighting you can add, especially particle systems. Particle systems is like my favorite thing to mess around with. And then extrude, if you know what that is. Actually, just to give an example of extrude so that the layman can understand. This sounds mean, I'm sorry. Here we go. This is how, like, I'm really not that good at this stuff, at 3D. 3D is, like, something I'd rather work with somebody who's not uppity and try to tell me what I should think I should like. But this is an extruded version of my logo, which I had to completely change the design for because I had too many angles, and this is like a simplified version of my logo concept. This is even more simplified. And I had to cut out a lot of things, but at least I got to keep this part here into design. I think the word I'm looking for is vertices. I had too many vertices if I used my original design. The weird thing is, this is how like unlucky and cursed I am with 3D, is I completely correctly extruded this, but for some unknown reason, there is a gap here and a gap here for no reason at all, which I did not even do, and I cannot fix because I suck. I suck at 3D, even though I use 3D. And I have a freaking degree in it. Also, my opinion on 3D teachers and instructors is majority of them are assholes. And I had this conversation with David Biedny, who worked at ILM. I could talk about this shit for hours. My experience with 3D animation classes and teachers is that they don't necessarily teach. They're lazy hacks, and they have a tendency to use, to not prepare correctly. They would often, because these softwares, especially back when I was studying it, would update sometimes like every few months, to the point where like the expensive version that the school had was obsolete by a month later, even with the like, because you know how you'd have like 2.0 and then you'd have 2.5 or 2.8, and the 2.3 was one way, but then the 2.5 it functioned and the layout was completely unlike the other ones, and then they'd be using like tutorials from like 2.0 or 2.2, which did not teach anything, and then the teacher didn't know how to teach us because he didn't actually know how to use the software that was the new version yet, even though he had a fundamental understanding of stuff. And then this happened a lot. I remember trying to do like a NURBS, if you know what NURBS are, tutorial, which was horrible. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I had this conversation with David. And basically, the 3D teachers, which pretty much entirely were men, seem to have a thing as if they were bisexual and in the closet or something, where whoever were the students who already understood 3D software and already were ahead of the curve, they would just focus all of their attention on those students so that they wouldn't have to teach. Then they would use these students to show off to everyone else, because 3D people are better than everyone else, and we have to rub it in your face that you guys suck because we don't actually teach you, and not everyone is autodidactic, and it's one of those things I struggled with like a lot. But yeah, this is an example of extruding, even though there's this error in there that I don't know why it's there. It took me like 3 months to figure this out because I'm not really good. I'm not amazing at 3D. Although I have done pretty well with the 3D integration features in After Effects, Adobe After Effects, which is like probably one of my favorite bits of software. And so there's a number of things that David does now that he's passed away. He has a way of affecting matter, and I have noticed, I think it's as if he has this thing going on with me where he wants to prove things. Like he's like, I'm going to prove all this stuff to you. But the majority of this agreement that I have with him, I can't remember, which I'm furious about. I'm so not happy about. And so one of the things he does is he can very well affect like air currents, and there are certain locations that I can go to. So for example, let me pull up a map. Here we go. A lot of times the map it has an inaccurate place of where I am located, and it will think I'm in like Rhode Island or something. Okay, so in general, oh, it's not showing my location. Okay, so one of the locations that I would go to, and these things would ramp up and amp up the just very strange activities that I was noticing, would be this location here. And right about, I'm trying to think, it's like somewhere around here. There's a Pokestop that I installed there, and there's this wall here, and this is the town where I live in, and this whole place, this whole location is a former naval air base that's been repurposed and has like new towns or new villages, new neighborhoods or whatever, and there's a sports complex and so on here. And I had these experiences, and they could happen in the daytime and the nighttime. When it happened in nighttime or right before it got dark, it would absolutely just utterly unnerve me. And I could be standing anywhere from like right around here to maybe around here, or sometimes over here. But at night, I would not come over here. I was like, no frickin' way, I'm not coming over here. And so it would usually like be like around here somewhere. Maybe here. And I was very aware that the wind, okay, so I'm an animator. I understand physics, how physics work, especially things like aerodynamics and how air flows. And also because I studied, I studied traditional animation, traditional art fundamentals, as well as, because I need to know these things for animation purposes, including especially traditional, but also for 3D and for particle systems and stuff like that. And when the air blows, because my whole life, even just a painting, like a painting that's not animated, that's a painting. When you're making the painting, and let's say you wanted to do something that infers that there's wind or whatever, you have to kind of understand, like, how does the air affect things, or stuff like that. And I would be standing like around here or here, and I would look at the trees, and some sections of these trees were behaving as though it was very windy, and then the ones next to it were not. Or some sections of these trees, or it could be over here, would have very windy motion going on, but then the things in front of it and behind it were not. And also the direction of the wind I was experiencing, where I was standing, was not accurate to what I was observing going on. And also the motion and the way that the air was moving around these areas in different locations were just not behaving according to how physics that I understand is supposed to work. And this weird activity would ramp up. And I would just, because especially if it was at nighttime, but it would happen in the daytime. In the daytime, I would notice it, but I would just kind of be like, that is weird, right? And it was especially specific locations that I went to frequently, because there's a Pokestop like right here. I could stand here and access it. I could also kind of access it like somewhere around here too, because I was close enough to it. The Pokestop, which is like right here. And when I was at night, it was so much more noticeable, and it would absolutely unnerve me. And the activity, the energetic experience of visually seeing it and hearing it and observing it absolutely unnerved me so bad. And there were other things that happened too, just absolutely bonkers, like just weird. And I would stand there and just be like, why? Like, I would try to take out the Pokegem, because at the time this is one of the only Pokegems that I had in the area. I've since then installed several others. And as I was standing there, and this screwy, because it usually would be like air current, like weird, like just physics is not functioning correctly. I could also experience where like one area that I would be standing in would be warm, like a warm pocket of air, and then another would be just deep cold. And that was a thing I frequently experienced as well. Other times there would be like weird, like animals that would just suddenly emerge out of like here, that just didn't seem to be acting right. They just seemed to be acting like so weird that it just bothered me. It bothered me so much. But I think part of it is like kind of like I have Native American heritage, and in very old Native American heritage, not necessarily today in this century, but in previous centuries, part of a lot of Native American culture is that you don't show your fear, and you also don't give a strong reaction to any kind of quote-unquote spirit or non-physical whatever, because if you do, it will like attach to you or whatever, I don't know. And so as these weird things are going on, I would just act like totally, well, like everything's fine, even though I could tell looking around that this was not normal, and it was bizarre. And I would just feel so unnerved. And as I was trying to take out the Pokegem, because I had to walk here on foot or ride my bike, and especially if I was doing this at night, I a lot of times would go at night because I didn't want to sunburn in the summer, or I have a stalking problem, and it's really annoying. And when I would go at night, at least I wouldn't have to worry about the stalker, the weird. It's so weird. It's like John Keel weird. And so then I would be there at night, and I remember like just sitting there. I'm like, why is this taking forever to take out this Pokegem? Like all the freaking Pokemon don't even have much like HP in their hearts. Like they're almost totally black. Why is this taking forever? And I'm just like sitting there like, what the heck? And I'm tapping my phone like, I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. I need to get the heck out of here. And I'm like observing all this weird activity in these trees, and the physics is just not logical. It's not computing, and I'm like, I do not like this. I do not like this at all. And as soon as I have multiple accounts or other person's accounts, and I would go through, put my Pokemon in there, put the other Pokemon in there, and then as soon as I was done, I would leave. I had a very weird experience one time in the winter. Actually, I had several weird experiences where there was someone over here, hanging out over here somewhere, and they were very tall and very heavy, and I could hear them, like I could hear their weight shifting, and they're standing there, and I could tell it was a male, and it was really tall, and I was so freaking scared. But there was some event, and other people needed their coins in the Pokegem. And it was dark outside, and it was like winter, and it had the temperature had dropped, or no, went up enough so that things started to start to melt, but it had snowed, right? And whoever was there, I started like what's called posturing, and I started just going off on whoever that was there. And I was so freaking terrified, but I acted as though I was a crazy lunatic bitch. I wanted to psych out whoever was there because I knew they were there. And I'd had other weird experiences also where I felt like someone was following me, which turned out to actually be like these hidden paths that I later found when the leaves fell down. And whoever it was like whoever it was like right around somewhere in here. Like maybe like right here. And they're so heavy, and they would step on like sticks, and like foliage that had fallen, and they had very heavy footprints. And I'm like right here, and I'm like, I gotta sell this. I gotta be like, I'm a lunatic, I'm a crazy person. And so I started berating this person. I started going off on this person because I was so scared. And I wanted to make whoever that was, think that I was an insane person and I was violent, and to not come near me because I knew they were watching me. They were watching me, okay? And I just wanted to just come off as like an insane person, just to keep them away from it, keep them over here. And I wanted whoever that was to be scared of me. So I finally took out the Pokegem as soon as I was done, and I'll put the Pokemon, including the other accounts, person's accounts, into that. I just started walking, and by the time I walked here, and I walked very fast, and I got to here. Whoever was here came over here, and I could hear them walk, because this is like a big hill thing, and they're walking this way with very loud, heavy footsteps as I'm walking this way. And the entire time I'm trying to act like calm, like I'm fine. But every once in a while I would just berate whoever was here. I would just, because I wanted to act like I wanted to give the impression that I was a lunatic and I was dangerous, even though I was very vulnerable, okay? And by the time I came to this light, which I don't think, it's not really showing. There's new traffic lights here, which is not really showing. Before you could just walk across, and since it was night, there wasn't really any traffic. but I pushed the traffic light thing so that I could go to the crosswalk, and it did not change right away. But I was so terrified and there was no traffic, that I just started walking, and I was like, I'm getting the hell out of here. And then I just walked right across here to go home. And I remember that was absolutely terrifying. There were other, and then the thing is, the next day when I came back and it was daytime, because there was still snow everywhere, I could actually find that there was a hidden walkway through here, and I could see footprints that were here, and they headed in this direction. I'd also experienced, when I walked, like, well, especially by the time I'd get to like through somewhere through here, going through here, and then especially along this area here, right here, because there's like these marshy, like, water canal things behind here, behind this, because this is a sidewalk. And I could also, when I was here, because I would do events here for Pokemon Go, and I could hear somebody in here, which oftentimes would sound like shorter people, maybe children or something. And it was absolutely unnerving. This happened several times during like lockdown. And I think this was in like 2020 and 2021 that this kept happening. And also I noticed that when I would come around here, there would be like weird vehicles that would just suddenly all show up as soon as I got there that were not there. Because I could be walking here and see that there was nobody parked here, there's no one here. And then as soon as I come around through here, all of a sudden there's all these cars that come around. They usually be black or white with black windows. So I think it was in 2021, because this stuff was happening a lot. At one point, I got absolutely like ticked off. And so, because I could hear them, that I told them off. They were on this side. I told them off. I had very strong words, very strong things I said. I called them names, and I was really indignant. And then the following day, when I came back in the afternoon, they were no longer on this side, but they were on this side. And I could hear them following me through here, especially like in this area. I could hear them. And this was absolutely aggravating. Absolutely aggravating. Because I just wanted to be left alone. And when all these leaves fell down that autumn, and there was no more foliage, when I came through this area and this area here, I found, because like this road still exists, it was an old service road for the Navy, and I found all of these walkways that came through these woods that you could clearly tell that human beings had been walking back and forth through these regularly, including the exact areas where I heard it the most. And then I also found stuff like that over here. And I was so mad. I was so mad. So that's one of the weird things that I had happened. But the weird physics stuff, which is absolutely spooky. I went to other locations, and actually I don't want to say exactly where. I did experience weird stuff here, and all kinds of weird things over here. Overall, I would say this is a peaceful place. This is a memorial park thing from the Naval Air Base. But there are other locations, and I don't want to say where, for various reasons. There was also, actually I will say, I went to Gifford Park. When I would ride my bike to come to Gifford Park, I had a mountain bike. That absolute weirdest stuff would happen to me when I come here too. Like very similar, like the physics wouldn't work. And in my neighborhood, in a specific location, I would notice this weird physics thing going on with the wind and the air currents and stuff. And I would just very stubbornly act as though I wasn't noticing it and I wasn't paying attention to it. And then, of course, it would ramp up. And I would still just very statuesquely ignore it. And I would put a lot of effort into pretending to ignore the things. Meanwhile, the activity of it, because it was usually like wind and blowing in like foliage. That wouldn't always be the only thing, though. That was, especially when it wasn't winter, I would notice that. But then I would also notice, like, even when it was winter, like air currents not working correctly. And to the point of, like, I felt like I was being messed with. And it was so intentional. If you've ever been bullied or messed with, there's this distinct way that certain kinds of bullying or teasing can occur where the bully is pretending that they're not doing anything, and every time you put your guard down and you look away or you're no longer like waiting for it, they'll do that thing again. No, it's not necessarily bullying. It could be like, you know, your brothers or your friends pranking you or whatever. And so I experienced these kinds of things in very specific locations. I really don't want to say where those are, because I already have a stalking issue. Like, that I don't want to say where that is. And this activity ramped up so much. I remember I was trying to hit level 50 in Pokemon Go. And this was the previous system. Now they have 80 levels and I'm at 73. I'm very behind right now because my leg injury. And let me see, do I have it? I didn't know my friend died, and this stuff happened there it is, when I hit level 50. There were certain locations that I was playing, in my neighborhood especially, because actually I had a plantar fascia problem at the time. I had surgery and I was recovering from the surgery, and I was severely anemic, and like severely anemic. And I also kept falling down, but I just wanted to hit level 50. And there are still people who could have hit level 50 and never did in that gaming system. And I constantly had some stupid setback, and it was ticking me off so much. And I was like, I don't care. This world sucks, and whatever it takes, I'm hitting level 50. And there was all these weird things that happened in March. I couldn't go with my parents to Florida. That's a whole stupid story. I didn't know David died. And when I would go places, and this was in my own neighborhood, these weird things kept happening. And I kept feeling like there was somebody there, and there was someone in the woods. Or somebody, like, another thing that kept happening, because Bill Martone died, I'd go, when I would take walks and stuff, I could hear somebody walking behind me, and so I would move out of the way so that I wouldn't block the sidewalk, because I have pretty good hearing. And I would even hear someone walking behind me, even with blasting my techno music. And then I'd turn around to let the person go, see who it was so they could pass me, and there would be no one there. I could also hear someone walking next to me. I could hear someone, like, literally, like, right behind me. And I could hear the footsteps, and it was a very heavy person. And I'd turn around, and it kept happening, and then it would just ramp up. And it was freaking me out. It was pissing me off. And then I kept thinking it was Bill Martone. But then I was thinking, like, why would Bill Martone, like, prank me like this? That's kind of weird. But if I thought it was Bill Martone, I would just kind of let it slide. And I was like, oh, Bill's being goofy. And I did actually a video memorial for Bill Martone. Which is, like, here. I just did a stream, and it's funny, it has, like, over 175 views now, but, I did it as, like, a memorial stream so that people could, like, I don't know, grieve or whatever, and, like, nobody really showed up for that, and I did that on, I think I did it on Twitch, and then I also premiered it or something on YouTube, and I told people who told me they cared, and, like, nothing happened. And Bill Martone was another very significant person in my life as an artist, as a person, so many things. I had a connection with Bill, and then, I don't know, just couldn't make the reconnection happen. It was just always something would sabotage it. And the other person who was just super important to me, it was David Biedny. David Biedny and me were just connected. It was like a thing. He was my friend. I just loved him so much, and there's just no other person like that. I just absolutely just love this person, this friend, so much. And we even, you know, most of the time we were just very on the same page and copacetic, but we could also disagree and have differences in tastes and stuff, which was part of the thing I liked about him, is that we were not carbon copies of each other. Like, we had different sides and views of things. And when I was trying to hit level 50 and I was walking around, at some point, because I kept feeling like whoever was there, because it was like, it was April, but it was still looked like winter here in Massachusetts. I kept feeling like there was somebody in the woods near the playground. And I mean, there were people who told me that there was like a non-human being or whatever around, which could also be a thing. Who knows at this point. And I said to this, whoever was there, because I couldn't unnotice it, whoever was there was annoyed with me, angry with me, and I had a very distinct feeling that they hated my music. And so I stood there because I couldn't tune it out. Whoever that was there was super pissed off at me, pretty mad at me, also seemed to really detest my music. And I just couldn't unnotice this anger very projected at me, or just sort of just focused on me. And actually, let me see if I can kind of show. Hold on a second. I don't want to show exactly where it is, but kind of, sort of. Is it gonna load? Can't zoom in any further than that. Alright, here we go. So there is a playground that's actually right here. And then there's these trees, which is shading it. You can't see this playground. And actually, is there a non-satellite? Oh crap, I don't want to show that. Whatever. So there's like a playground there. And I stopped what I was doing, and I was so close to hitting level 50. All I needed was like maybe 1 or 2 more days left of just catching Pokemon and getting XP, and if I could find anything that could evolve, I would evolve that with a lucky egg, just to farm the XP and grind, just totally grind. I was I was on an extreme grind. And I just stopped what I was doing, and then I turned off my music, and I just faced the playground because it was just so unnerving to me. And I said, look, I realize you probably just don't like my music, but I'm just trying to hit level 50 in this game I'm playing, and I've been through hell with all these like surgeries and illnesses and whatever. And you know, maybe I'll play some other kind of music that, you know, that's probably more your thing. And so I played this song by Stanley Walker, I think? Stan Walker. It's called I Am. Where's the video? This is the lyric video. Is this it? Yeah, it's probably this one. I don't know why it says 2026 though, but it's from that time when it came out. And here's the, he has this video, and every once in a while I'd play. Another one was, I really like this track, it's, well, you can play this one, but it's usually this one. I've seen various other video renditions of it, which I'm not finding at the moment. It's this one. It's a long track, and it's very tribal. So this one's very tribal, and that one's very tribal. It's this kind of neo-tribal vibe. And oftentimes when I'm in a difficult situation, I would, certain kinds of music would help me get through it. One would be certain kind of tribal music, and another would be Blue Monday by New Order. Certain 80s emo synth new wave stuff too. And so I just spoke my piece, and I was like, this is what I'm doing, this is why. And I was like, I'm not trying to like offend you or bother you, but like I'm actually like working towards something, and I'm really like in a lot of pain, and I just want to get it over with, and I've been delayed so many times. And then I said, out of respect, I'll play this other music for you. So then I did, and I played that music. And immediately after I did that, the weird anger feeling projected at me vanished. And the weird physics things, like the weird wind, like a lot of it was like wind and air currents, and the trees just misbehaving. I don't know how else to characterize it. It was absolutely unnerving. It just stopped. And everything got so calm after that. And then I was really struggling to find enough Pokemon. And I had my lucky eggs on, and I was just like wasting lucky eggs just trying to just find the Pokemon. Even with my Pokemon incense on, I was just not finding enough Pokemon. And I was also not being able, I was just struggling to get enough Pokeballs. It was really ticking me off. It was just so needlessly too difficult, even though it was a basic thing, and I'm a professional at this. And when all of that calmed down after I spoke my piece to that, whoever that was, and everything just got calm, I started noticing there was more Pokemon. And so I think it was like, I think I still was playing outside for like 2 or 3 more days because I was that close to hitting level 50. And everything seemed to just streamline after that. It just seemed to go a lot better. The wind was not as harsh. The wind was not as cold. There was no more of this weird physics things going on. And if it kind of started, I would just sort of talk to whatever the physics, the weird windy thing in the trees was. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just play this song for you. And then on the final day, I went over to the parking lot next to the playground, which now has, or at that time had just gotten a new poke gym, because I'm awesome like that. And I was like, I know you don't like my music, but I'm gonna play it because I feel like my grind is better and my performance is better, and that's why. And I was like, just don't get mad at me. And it was so weird because it was like the fact that I had acknowledged whoever that was, whatever that was, and I explained myself. It seemed to now sympathize with me and respect me because I had shown respect to him, whatever. And I also did not know that David had died yet. And I had surgery like just a few days after he died. And I remember when I had surgery, I got kind of like stuck in this like void state because they put you in this anesthesia. I was very like defiant when I went to go have that surgery because I really didn't want to have that surgery, and I did not want to have my uterus removed, but it was just full of tumors and I couldn't stop bleeding for years, and it was like killing me. And another problem I had was I only had one ovary because one of my ovaries is just missing, which nobody can explain. That's another screwed up story. And I was told by the surgeon that if they accidentally touched it and it started bleeding, that they'd have to remove it. And I was like, but you can't do that because I only have one ovary. And she was glad that I reminded her that. She also used to like treat me like nice at times, and then she'd seem kind of freaked out by me. So I don't know if I just seemed like a lunatic or something. But I was just so not in my right mind necessarily because of all the screwy stuff that kept happening to me. And I was highly anemic. And this thing kept still happening with this wind and the weird physics and just strange things that kept happening. I would also experience like just suddenly weird ideas, weird thoughts. And before Go Fest in 2024, I went out because it's like there's specific locations that I would frequent that to me now it's very obviously David doing these things. When I would go there, the weird stuff would happen. The weird like physics. Sometimes it would even be like weird things with animals, and I mean like it's uncanny. Like it's like something out of like shamanism, kind of weird. And after a while, because at first I was just like, oh, it's just Bill Martone. But then it would just be weird and wacky, and like it had like a sense of humor to it. And I knew Bill's sense of humor, which is because he taught all the animators. So he had a goofiness as well. But this kind of humor and wackiness and the approach to it was so not how Bill would do things. And this stuff kept reminding me of David. And then all these things kept happening that kept reminding me of David. And I was still mad at David because he blocked me, and the way he did it was so fucked up. And over a total misunderstanding from Mr. I teach at Yale, Mr. I'm so smart. And before he passed away, I had become able to outthink him and out-argue him. I knew his approach to things, so I knew his style of approach as well as I had my own. And he didn't, so this is usually the thing he loved about me, until he was emotionally attached and invested in certain things that were completely incorrect and highly hypocritical, which he used to point out like 10 years before, or yeah, about 10 years or more before that, like even maybe like 15 years, 20 years before, that he used to get hell for, only to fall into these same stupid things. And so when he blocked me and canceled me like that, it was just, I was still mad about it, because I felt like I knew he was smarter than that, I knew he was better than that, and he just sort of lowered himself so much to react like that, and to act like I was in the wrong and I was a bad person, when he was acting just very immaturely. And I also would let these things slide because I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what was wrong. I knew something was wrong. I felt like, is he ill? Like, what happened to him? And he would tell me certain things that would lead me to kind of lean towards or speculate that was the case, that there was something wrong. But I could always like feel that something wasn't right, and there was something going on in the background. He had told me before he blocked me, he told me some really bad things about like this chick he dated who was abusive to him, and it was really bad. And I would tell him stuff like, like, I'd never do that to you. I would never ever treat you like that. And so when he blocked me, I was like really like sour and bitter about it. And because all these things kept reminding me of David, it was like happy and sad. And then I would be like mad, because then I'd remember like, oh yeah, he blocked me, like that punk. But there was this one time where, right before GoFest, I kept having like these weird dreams. And it was very like Donnie Darko, and I hadn't watched Donnie Darko yet, but everyone was talking about it. I had seen the trailers and I was familiar with the movie posters and whatever, but I had just never gotten the time to sit down and watch it because I was doing all these other research things. And it kept mentioning in the dreams a version of my friend whom had apparently been arrested for CSAM. And in the dreams, it was oftentimes he was wearing the mask, the bunny, like a rabbit mask that was kind of sort of similar to the Donnie Darko mask. What was his name? Was it Frank? I don't know. And the day before GoFest, or the night before, it was trending all over Twitter that my friend Kyle, who's a really famous person, got arrested for possession of very illegal materials. And I was still in denial because that friend Kyle was very good at telling me like these very thought out excuses and alibis until someone else would poke holes in it, and he was just very good at this. And it finally sunk in that no, he actually committed these crimes. He actually did these other very bad things. And it was like the Me Too movement or Harvey Weinstein, and my friend Kyle was not talking to me. And it was weird because before that whole thing was trending on Twitter, that morning I was outside at my poke gym in my neighborhood, and I'd had a conversation with a really famous YouTuber who I'm not gonna name drop. That was earlier that week, like a day or two before, and I was still thinking about it, and I was just so happy about that conversation I'd had with that specific YouTuber. in his like voice chat thing, and I had done that after I had done like I think it was a Ho-Oh raid, which they hadn't had Ho-Oh raids forever, and I'd gotten a shiny. And so I was outside thinking about that YouTuber, who I think is a really cool guy. He's just like an atheist, and all the people in there are atheists, and I actually enjoy a lot of atheist content still because it's very cathartic. And as I was out there by the bench near the office building of my condominium neighborhood, I was doing the Pokemon stuff, and then I suddenly got slammed with this feeling. And this was like the day before Go Fest.
Nope.
And I could not unshake this feeling, this heavy feeling, this horribly bad, very emo, very just heavy feeling. And I had this feeling that just like a ton of bricks just come onto me, like I had lost something so valuable and so precious and I'd never get it back. And I could not shake this feeling, and it was so real. It was so real. Also, I'd been experiencing there were these ravens everywhere, these two huge ravens that would show up everywhere. And I had this feeling, I knew what it was like to grieve, and I knew it was like to mourn something, anything. If you've ever been through a divorce, it's very similar. Or a breakup. A really significant breakup. Or if you've been fired from a job you liked, which I did not have many of. Or even people you like that you work with or whatever. It's this grief feeling, and I had it. It was so heavy. And I could not get rid of it. And I didn't know why. I don't remember when it just hit me. It was just like, whoom. And, I didn't know what to do with it. So I started listening to, music. I was listening to, like, VNV Nation. Some of the most emo freaking songs by VNV Nation. And then I went through the whole thing with Go Fest, and I was in like a really bad head spin because it became more and more obvious to me, and I was sinking in that my friend Kyle was a criminal. And it was like the worst of the worst. And he had accused other people of doing these things, or had it out for people who also were doing these things. But apparently what he was doing was even worse than John Kay. And I never knew, because I was friends with Kyle, and Kyle was like such a good friend to me. He was like Mr. Perfect, like so perfect, okay? There was nothing imperfect I could find with Kyle. He was also like a celebrity, like a big time celebrity over on the West Coast and in the animation industry. And it's as if David was trying to, I wrote down a lot of these dreams too, trying to show me something. And I had these other dreams I was interacting with these beings, but then it was so real and so vivid, and then when I wake up, it was just like blocked from my memory. I was so mad. Every freaking day I remember this happening. And I remember I was listening to all this music. I was listening to like VNV Nation and Ultravox and like 80s stuff, various stuff. And then this music kept coming to me, and it kept coming to me. And a lot of it would even like remind me of David, which was so weird. And then the weirder things, like there was so many weird things, so freaking weird. every day throughout the day, at night, in my dreams, and it would just ramp up, and at some point I couldn't ignore it anymore. And then I remember thinking, like, even early on, like, because this feeling I had, I couldn't get rid of it. I couldn't get rid of this feeling I had. And I'd have to listen to the music just so that I could cope with this feeling. I had this feeling of just this total loss, this total, like, grief mourning. And I kept thinking, like, who died? Because I had similar experiences before. Where, cause I don't usually have this experience with human beings dying where I'm depressed or get emotional, but I can miss them, and like I'll think about them, and then the weird things would happen, right? Including weird dreams or weird stuff moving around or whatever, but it would sort of come and go, right? This was so persistent. This was like everywhere I went, everything I did, and it would always remind me of David. Even the thing he gifted me years ago just showed up, and next thing I know, I was back with this, listening to more tribal music again, and then because I was like feeling, I was just very in my feelings and very emo, I started listening to more like neo-pagan stuff again. It was so funny because the stuff that made me feel the most better was stuff that totally reminded me of David. Like, there's this band I really like, and I've always liked, called Trobar de Morte, which the name says it all, and it's in Spanish, and he was fluent in Spanish. And the more darker, mournful themes really kept finding their way to me, and then I started finding all this there was all this Viking stuff that kept happening, and the ravens that kept showing up everywhere. I didn't understand, like, what the heck does this mean? Like, why is there ravens? And I'm not a New Agey person, so then I would go to look up at some point, because it's just so persistent. And even when I went to spend time with my parents in the summer, the ravens were there too. They were huge ravens, and there was always two of them. They would even like cackle at me in the morning to wake me up. They'd be in my balcony, my so-called balcony on the first floor. They'd be in the parking lot. When I go outside to do Pokemon stuff, they'd be outside the front lobby door. If I went out the back door, they were outside in the back door. And I was like, what do ravens mean? And I was looking up like new agey stuff, like totems or whatever, and nothing made sense. And then there were these certain songs that kept coming up, and I was very prejudiced to Vikings for many reasons, because I'm very anti-violence and very anti-war, pro-peace. And so the stuff that was coming up that I was enjoying was stuff that cared about like the earth or nature, or had some kind of something about the song like spoke to me. And the one song that really resonated with me the most, trying to talk over the peanut gallery over here, was called Helvegen. And then there were two other versions of the song that also seemed to come up. One was by, of all things, Trobar de Morte and Calandra. So, alright, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna eat. So that's the end for now.